So, welcome back to Big Riff Energy. This is episode 8. We have announced a new album, so I'm going to talk a little bit about that. We have a new song out. I'm going to talk a little bit about that. I just dropped everybody off at the airport, and we just got done shooting a couple of music videos over the past couple of days. That was a lot of fun. Running around in the woods, getting murdered, doing some crazy shit in a church, doing some crazy stuff in a ghost town. And I'm tired. This is going to be a short episode today. So yeah, we have a new song out called Death Won't Stop Me. And it's the lead single from our new album, Ghost At The Gallows, which I've been working on since March of 2020. So I'm pretty excited to reveal that. Going to take a while for it to come out. We're going to be releasing singles and videos and the usual stuff, but also a lot of guitar content. There is a riff tutorial on the Spirit Adrift YouTube page right now for the new song. Also, Tom and I are going to be posting a lot of guitar content on social media and that sort of stuff. So there's going to be plenty to keep us all occupied between now and August when the record comes out. I'll talk a little bit about the new song specifically. I don't want to get too much into the record because I'm going to end up dedicating a whole episode to the new record. Probably more than one episode, I would imagine. But I will talk about the new song, Death Won't Stop Me. Probably the most straightforward song on the new album. Pretty much what Spirit Adrift has become known for, I think, like old school, epic, heavy metal, you know. I started out with the concept musically of wanting to do something fun with a chug part. I really like chug parts where the chugs like flip around and change. The positioning of the chugs within the measures will it's not quite Meshuggah, you know what I mean? But yeah, keep it a little bit interesting. It, you know, upon first listen, it might just seem like I'm talking about the verse riff. Probably seems like pretty straightforward. But if you really listen to it, it's do some counting. Count where those chugs are, and it's not as straightforward as you would think. I think that was the genesis of the song was the verse riff. And at some point I knew I wanted a really epic intro with a single note guitar hook, a lead guitar hook, somewhere in the vein of Sweet Child of Mine, or, you know, I really like the vibe of the Phantasm theme. I've reworked that a lot in different songs. Also, Wake from Little Rock, who I'm always talking about. They have a song on their album Voices of Omens called The Finality. And that was, I think I was really trying to get something like that. I would imagine, I haven't talked to Jeff or whoever wrote that, but I would imagine they were going for a similar thing, like a Sweet Child of Mine, kind of like hook, just a big single note guitar hook, man. And the song just grew from there. Lyrically, it's sort of about a guy that can't die, even though he wants to sometimes. He's not a vampire, because that's corny, but some kind of hard ass. What's this guy supposed to be? The ultimate badass? Yeah, and it sort of became a metaphor for... I was reading the Dio autobiography, and he talked about the coming and going of different trends. Like in the 90s, Dio's style of music was sort of out of fashion, you know, and he was playing like little clubs and shit, like just kind of scraping by, which is hard to even fathom that Dio could play places smaller than an arena, you know. But he said in the book, just walk your own path, and every once in a while, the rest of the world might walk beside you. But if they don't, they don't. Just walk your own path. And that's what he did. He was the living embodiment of that. Guys like him and Lemmy and guys that just do their own thing and they are not too concerned about whatever passing bullshit is happening in culture and society, in music and heavy music. And Death Won't Stop Me is about that. You know, I didn't fucking like nu metal the first time it happened. I didn't. It has nothing to do with anything other than using my ears and absolutely hating what I was hearing. And I also felt like the same people that were sort of looking at me weird for showing up to school in Slayer shirts and Black Sabbath shirts and Metallica shirts. All of a sudden, Slipknot came out. I don't hate Slipknot, by the way. I'll just put that out there. I think that's a fucking great band. For what they do, they're the best, you know. But all these people showing up in Slipknot shirts and all this different shit, and it's the same people that were looking at me weird for being into heavy music. So I was kind of repulsed by the whole thing from that aspect, but also from the just using my ears and hearing dog shit when I listen to nu metal. So I hated it the first time, but the first time it at least had the element of originality. I'll give it that. Like bands like Korn, nobody had ever done anything like that before. But now the second time around, it's you can't even justify it by using the originality angle, because it's just a rehash of something that I fucking hated the original version of. So yeah, this song's sort of about just staying true in the face of all that, and not staying true to satisfy any poser disposers or anything like that. Just literally staying true to myself, staying true to what I like. Because you even had Slayer. Kerry King talks so much shit about nu metal and stuff, but listen to the album that Slayer made in the 2000s. It's basically a nu metal album, you know. So I don't know. It's just important to me to walk the walk, you know, and write music that I love and that is real to me. And Death Won't Stop Me musically and lyrically is all about that. Of course, it's told in a metaphorical story of a badass dude that can't die, and he's just been destroying everything in his path for as long as time has existed, and he will continue to do so forever and ever. And it fits right into the themes of Ghost at the Gallows. You know, after the past couple of days working on these videos, we had this great dude come in from Georgia, this guy Wombat Fire. Check him out on Instagram. And man, the vibe was just dialed in. I never have fun making music videos. I normally hate that kind of stuff. And it was so much fun running around acting like little kids, you know, getting killed and just doing cool shit, fog and crazy lights. There's nothing I love more than like fog and creep show lighting and redneck stuff. And we got to do all of that kind of stuff. It was a lot of fun. So those videos will come out in the future. We have a visualizer video for Death Won't Stop Me done by our friend Wayne, who really knocked it out of the park. I'll speak totally frankly. I don't ever give a shit about visualizer videos or lyric videos. It's a means to an end to get people to listen to the song. People are more likely to check the song out if there's some sort of visual accompaniment. But Wayne made something that I actually love, and I think he really nailed the concepts and all of that. And I've realized over the past couple of days, out of any Spirit Adrift album, I will say about the new album Ghost at the Gallows, the aesthetic and the vibe and the sound and the production and the songs and the lyrics and everything, the whole package is the most cohesive presentation that I've ever achieved with an album. It's all very, it's a singular vision, and everyone that's contributed to that has nailed it. I mean, from Wayne doing the visualizer video, I haven't even seen a first cut of the music videos we just did, but even just looking at what Wombat was getting, nailed it. Jeremy Hush, who did the artwork, nailed it. Chimera Noir, who did the layout, nailed it. The physical version of the album is going to have, the CD will have a full-length booklet. Each song gets its own artwork done by Jeremy Hush. And then the vinyl will also have a full-size 12-inch vinyl booklet with all of that artwork and accoutrement, as they say. So I'm psyched, man. Everybody involved knocked it out of the park. Century Media has been crushing it with the rollout. Our manager, Chris, has been doing a fantastic job. Our agent, Jake, is doing a fantastic job. I just want to thank everybody, man. Mike, Tom, Sonny, obviously, Sanford Parker, tracked the drums. Jeff Henson tracked everything else here in Texas. And, man, it's killer. I hope I'm not forgetting somebody. But, again, you know, I say it every time, but this is for sure my favorite Spirit Adrift album. As time passes, you know, I've seen how people could prefer Divided over Enlightened, you know. I think I still lean Enlightened a little bit. But it's interesting to let time pass as these albums come out and see if my preference changes. And I don't think it has, really, honestly. I see how Divided has some qualities that are better than Enlightened for sure. But I think every subsequent thing that Spirit Adrift does is my favorite thing. As far as albums, I don't count 20 Centuries Gone. That's a fun little like COVID release. Let's be real, man. But the originals on it, yeah. I think those are two of our strongest originals. But this new album's my favorite by far. I've never had the resources or the time to spend in the writing and pre-production phase, and I'm just really psyched. Like I said, Death Won't Stop Me is for sure the most straightforward, just metal stomper in your face song on the record. I'm proud of that one too, but definitely doesn't give you a full scope of what's in store. So yeah, man, Ghost at the Gallows is coming out in August. We are announcing a tour on Tuesday, apparently. If it doesn't leak in this press release that came out today, we'll see. Okay, I'm going to get to some fan questions here. My friend Ty, longtime buddy and longtime supporter. He was at our Curse of Conception album release show. He might have been at the first show. I don't know. But Ty said, since you mentioned wanting to cover one of their songs, I was wondering if you could talk about your love of Rush. I may be assuming this, but I can imagine you only jive with the golden era stuff from self-titled Moving Pictures and maybe Signals. But I got to know how much they influenced you as a musician from their instrumentation, and if Neil Peart was an influence on your songwriting, because your style and his seem quite similar in certain ways. It's interesting you bring up Neil specifically, him being the lyricist on all of that stuff. I never thought about Neil Peart influencing me as a lyricist, but now that you say it, I would say 100%. 100%. The introspective sort of metaphysical approach to lyricism, talking about like real heavy internal and external subject matter. I would say my favorite lyricists in rock and metal, most of my favorite lyricists are country guys, like old Tom Petty, Billy Joe Shaver, guys like that. Dax Riggs, I would say. But in rock and metal, I would say Geezer Butler, number one. Bob Daisley is up there. For those of you that don't know, Bob Daisley was the primary lyricist for the Ozzy stuff, Ozzy solo stuff. And Roger Waters, as much as I can't stand that dude, and I think he's probably an asshole and a selfish prick. I don't know him, so I'm making assumptions, but by all accounts, you know. But as a lyricist, dude, go listen to Echoes by Pink Floyd, and that's some of the most beautiful words ever put to music. You know, something about bass players, that's weird. Bass players in the 70s and 80s were writing really good lyrics. Yeah, and I would put Neil Peart in there too. Musically, I don't know that Rush has had such a direct influence on me as a lot of other bands. I have an interesting relationship with Rush. I actually prefer the hits. I do like some of the later stuff too. Snakes and Arrows was something. I think I saw him on that tour. I got to see Rush twice. Feel very fortunate to have been able to see them. Some of the choruses maybe, and Lifeson does this thing that's similar to like the chorus in Snowblind, where you're picking out a power chord, but then you incorporate a lot of open strings in the whatever, and you're picking out the single notes of chords with the open strings ringing out and sustaining over the top of it. Lifeson does that really well in Spirit Radio, like in the verses and all over the place. But yeah, I would say Moving Pictures, honestly, is my favorite Rush record. And like if you put their greatest hits together or like a really good live set, that would be my favorite Rush stuff. I love their show-offy, like super progressive genius stuff too, but most bands I like sort of the more obscure stuff. Black Sabbath and a lot of my favorite bands, Led Zeppelin, I'll go more towards the obscure stuff. But then there's bands like Rush and Blue Oyster Cult, I think would probably be another one where I sort of just prefer the radio hits. I think that's their best, strongest material. The first time I saw Rush, I'll never forget, there was a guy with a giant sign running back and forth. It was an outdoor show, and the sign said, "Slap it to bass." If anybody's seen I Love You, Man. And they cracked into Spirit of Radio first song, and this guy was running like full sprint with this "Slap it to bass" sign up over his head, just acting a fool. And that's one of my fondest memories of a live show ever. I immediately started crying when I heard Spirit of Radio live for the first time. Amazing. I love Rush so much, man. I love everything about that, man. If you haven't seen it, this is becoming my catchphrase. Watch the documentary about Rush. Amazing. What a band, dude. Rest in peace, Neil Peart. One of the best drummers and lyricists that ever lived. I have another message here from Tyler. Let's see. Tyler's just saying nice stuff about the podcast. He bought a P-Bass from me a while back and has been loving the hell out of it. Tyler says, "I'm still praying for bass breakdown for a Spirit Adrift song on your channel one day." I can definitely do that. The basses probably wouldn't take as much time as breaking down the guitar stuff. Tyler bought a black Fender P-Bass from me that I equipped with a mirror pick guard, Phil Lynott style. I'm really glad that went to a good home. Thank you, Tyler. I love knowing that the gear that I have loved and used to make this music goes to people that appreciate it. I'm glad you got it. Tyler said, "I'm wondering what makes a riff truly heavy to you." He says, "For me, I know it goes way deeper than just a tuning, guitar tone, and notes. There's something in those riffs that just makes you grit your teeth and go, damn, that's good." In your opinion, what are some of the heaviest riffs in metal? Love what you're doing, man. I have been a fan for quite a while now. Can't wait for the new album. Keep up the amazing work. And he hopes to see us live in Denver sometime soon. I hope so too, man. There was a time when we had played Denver more. Well, I think even now, I think we played Denver more times than we played like Phoenix area, which was the original home base, and Austin, which is the new home base. I think we might have played Denver more, but it's been way too long since we've come over there. Thanks for the question, Tyler. I did like an editorial piece or whatever you want to call it for Metal Hammer or something. It's been a while now, but if you Google like Nate Garrett heaviest riffs ever written or something, it'll pop up. And I remember I had a Crowbar riff on there. It could be any Crowbar riff, really. It could just be 10 Crowbar riffs. But when we showed up to the first day of the Crowbar tour, and I started talking to Kirk, he was like, "Hey, man, I really appreciate you putting us on that heaviest riffs ever list." You know, I'm sure his wife, Robin, was like, "Oh, check it out. He wrote this." Oh, I'm always talking about Crowbar, wearing Crowbar shirts and promo photos and stuff. But that was a really cool way to start that tour, getting a thank you from the writer of the heaviest riffs ever written for shouting out one of his riffs, which is one of the heaviest riffs ever written. What else was on that list? I think maybe the breakdown in Children of the Grave. One thing that I think you have to consider when asking about a heavy riff is the context. So, like, it took me a while to get into the song Black Sabbath by the band Black Sabbath because it's kind of slow and I don't know. I heard Paranoid first and I was like, this is awesome. And then I remember putting on the first record and just being confused. And they wrote that in like 1968 or 69. And look at the landscape of music in 1968 or 69. You know, in Ozzy's book, he talked about they grew up in Birmingham, England, and the hippie movement was going on in America. And he was talking about all this, man, we heard all this bullshit about if you're going to San Francisco, wear some flowers in your hair. And then he talked about how he would see just violence and chaos and fistfights. Birmingham's a real industrial town. See people getting thrown through plate glass windows at the pub and stuff. And he said, he ended a chapter with, if you're coming to Birmingham, wear some broken glass in your hair. So consider the context. And if that's the criteria, the heaviest riff ever written is the riff from Black Sabbath. Because even in today's context, where we've had all these years of people trying to be more and more extreme and more evil and more heavy and more scary, I think that riff's still heavier and scarier than anything else. All this like deathcore bullshit, you know, is it really as heavy and scary as hearing that rain and the bell ringing in the cemetery and the tritone riff come in, which was banned for an entire portion of human history because real ass human beings who are no different than modern human beings as far as our chemical makeup believed with all of their being that tritone summoned the goddamn devil. There's nothing heavier than that. So yeah, it's all kinds of stuff. It's there's riffs that I hear that physically changed my brain chemistry and give me adrenaline. A lot of carnivore riffs, certain stuff on Cro-Mag's Age of Quarrel, Crowbar riffs. I'm trying to think what else is on that list that I did. You guys can look it up, but Nothing Is Not by Morbid Angel is probably on there. You could put Where the Slime Live on there. What else? This band Oathbreaker that I toured with, my friend Leonard is in a bunch of bands, a bunch of really good bands. He's also in Amun Ra. But he wrote this riff for the song, I think it's called A Glimpse of the Unseen. And every tour that I go on, I try to learn a riff from another band that's on the tour. I know when we toured with Necrot, everybody in every band learned their riff, Empty Hands, which is a super heavy riff. But on the tour I did with Oathbreaker, I learned that riff from A Glimpse of the Unseen. That dude, that's one of the heaviest riffs ever. 10,000 Years High on Fire, I'm sure was on that list. That's still probably my favorite riff ever written. So what makes a heavy riff? It's sort of subjective. I don't think that I've ever heard a deathcore riff that was heavy. You watch all these reaction videos of people like with the headphones on listening to a deathcore breakdown. They're not heavy because there's no frame of reference. And also all of that stuff sounds exactly the same. Exactly the same. You're just putting the spaces in a different position. Who gives a fuck? Who gives a fuck? And that's like listening to that shit ass music all day long, every day. To me, and let me just say, this is my opinion, okay? I mean, that's like eating plain rice for 3 meals a day, every day for your whole life. You guys need to open up your palate a little bit. So how can something be heavy if there's no dynamics? You know, to me, there has to be a frame of reference for something to be heavy, whether it's a tempo shift or a dynamic shift or something like that. But, you know, if you asked a larger percent of the population, like what I mean to say is there's a lot more people that feel differently than me that would listen to just a deathcore breakdown and think it's the heaviest thing they ever heard. Whereas I listen to Hank Williams sing about wanting to die, and I think that's way heavier. Granted, that's not a riff, but you get the idea. So I don't know. To me, what makes a heavy riff is context. The context, by and large, the context of what the person's trying to say in the song, the context in the range of dynamics and that sort of stuff. But also, it's just one of those things. You know it when you hear it. You'll have a visceral reaction. I think that's it for fan questions. I literally got home from the airport and came in here and just hit record because I knew that there was no other way that I was going to do this. So I didn't pick an album to talk about. So I'll go pick one at random and we'll see what happens. Give me 10 seconds. Okay. Thin Lizzy, Bad Reputation. There's only 3 people on the cover. How are they going to do guitar harmonies with 3 people, you might ask? Well, Brian Robertson, who joined the band when he was like 15 or something. He joined the hardest partying, like hardest fighting band in history, Irish band, taking it to another level when he was 15 or 16 or something. The reason that he's not on the cover of Bad Reputation is because he was absent for some of the recording and promo photos and stuff like that because he had shattered his hand on somebody's face or head in a bar fight. So he's not on the cover. There's only 3 of them. I think the song Soldier of Fortune on Bad Reputation, if aliens came down and said, how do you do guitar harmonies? I would play them that song. It's just not even fair. It's not even fair. I don't know I know Phil Lynott was the primary songwriter, right? But how do we know who was coming up with all those melodies? The melodies are so familiar. They're archetypal. They're, at least me being like Scott, Irish, English mutt dude, when I hear it, it's like I've already been hearing it. Like I heard it in a previous life, you know? It just resonates with the soul. So I don't know if that's Phil Lynott writing those melodies or Scott Gorham or who. But anyway, Bad Reputation is one of the best Thin Lizzy records. Any of those records where you have Scott Gorham on guitar and Robbo on guitar, that to me is the peak era. What a band, man. One of the best lineups of a band that's ever existed. I know Annihilation Time covered the title track, did a great version of it. It really lends itself to their style. My buddy Tony Molina did Soldier of Fortune, and I guess live he would do it with 3 guitars, which is incredible. Yeah, man, what a good record. What else is on it? Hang on. Dancing in the Moonlight's all right. That's it, it's different. Saxophone is dangerous territory. You can summon murderous ghost truckers. Yeah, Opium Trail, incredible. Southbound is one of my favorite Thin Lizzy songs, but I do prefer the Live and Dangerous version. It's quite a bit different. Killer Without a Cause is great. Downtown Sun. I mean, every song is good. Every song's good. Yeah. And the band is credited as the bad guys. And the people on the business end of things, or no, Yeah, people on the business end of things and the backing musicians are credited as the good guys and girl. Pretty awesome. Oh my God. And they thank Rush. They only thank two things, and one of them is Rush. Our friends Rush. Amazing. Okay, that's my thoughts on Thin Lizzy, Bad Reputation, one of my favorite albums. Like, subscribe, comment. Check out our new song, Death Won't Stop Me. Pre-orders for the new album will be up after a while. They're not up yet. We're going to make you wait and salivate, or not. Maybe you don't give a shit. I don't know. Either way, it's cool. But yeah, check the song out. Follow us on social media if you want and all of that. If you look at the Spirit Adrift YouTube, there's going to be a bunch of content being posted on there. And thanks for listening. Write me a question. BigRiffEnergy@gmail.com. Don't send me an Instagram message. Don't comment and expect me to see it. Send a fucking email like God intended. All right, I'm going to go finish watching this Waco thing and get some more ideas. Thanks, guys.